We're all bosses here.
You saw like a steep incline on quality as soon as I stopped trying to make stuff. Your lovely host Risen and my sidekick Bolon.
Sure, we'll go with that.
We have a very special guest, somebody that we get the privilege to talk to every single week at an ungodly hour because we are 13 hours apart from each other. So it doesn't matter if it's right now or very early morning for us, very late for him, or usually when it's very late for us and he's just starting his day. John, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. I am super excited, a little nervous maybe, to be on the Chaos Cast. I've heard a lot about this podcast. I hear it's ranked #1 in Bolivia, so congratulations on that. My name is John Cho. I am the head of growth at KLAYTN, and I have been working with these two lovely gentlemen, helping them understand the KLAYTN ecosystem, also helping them onboard DeFi Kingdoms onto the KLAYTN ecosystem. And yeah, I'm just super thrilled to be a part of this amazing podcast. Looking forward to it.
So how does the pressure feel being the first actual view of our community? Like, you're exposing yourself right now to all of the degens that thrive in our Discord on a daily basis.
You know what? I was lying about being nervous before. I actually feel really at home right now. I am a bit of a degen myself. I have been involved in crypto in some manner for a very long time. So I actually feel really comfortable, really at home, and I'm just, again, over the moon about the fact that I consider myself a part of the community now. So yeah, not nervous, feeling right at home.
Good. That's what we like to hear. We're a very welcoming bunch.
Yes, we're not aggressive looking at all.
No, I mean, I have to say, I mean, I still remember my very first meeting with you guys. Just felt like, it was like a bunch of dudes, just like, having a conversation. Did not feel like a business meeting at all, which I loved. I love that fact about the DeFi Kingdoms team.
Yeah, I'm very opposed to anybody that's trying to shove that little bit of corporate culture into the DeFi world. I am not wearing a suit. I am in my pajamas at the moment, even though I'm rocking my t-shirt that I got in Singapore. And this is how I've decided the rest of my life will be, and I refuse to deviate from that.
I feel bad. I meant to pack my shirt and I forgot to, so I'm rocking Crystal Vale, but I meant to pack my Clayton shirt and forgot to.
It was a very large failure on your part, John. You don't know this, but me and Bolon, we text each other the night before to make sure that we are matching properly. Whenever we go to events, we coordinate our outfits to make sure that we don't stand out from each other too much. Don't
It's true.
confuse the masses.
It's true.
I mean, Bolon completely understand. Like as I understand, it's like 6 a.m. right now. So completely like understand. You missed the Clayton shirt. So I mean, I was kind of planning to be more suited to the vibes of this podcast. But it's like I think it's like 9 degrees Celsius right now here in Seoul. It's pretty cold, so I had to
What is that
What
in
is that to real
American?
people?
yeah, in real life, I'm pretty bad at math. It's bad at math. It's like I don't know, like 20. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit.
48.
Hey,
I just googled it. 48. That's
okay,
pretty cold.
yeah, it's pretty
That's
cold.
pretty cold.
By the way, so you guys, so just I just wanted to just straighten a few things out. I mean, so you do realize you're the only country, I think, in the world that still uses the Kensington system. I mean, everyone else is on like metric. So you
Yeah,
should
that's because
definitely.
we're leaders, not followers.
Yeah, right. But I mean, especially now that you're part of the Clayton family, I recommend you guys brush up on your metric system.
For
I
the
mean,
record, there are 3 countries. It's us, Liberia, and Myanmar. Totally
Oh, really?
logical. Yep.
I will
Mia?
say I will learn the metric system if I don't have to try and pick up another language.
Um, you know what? Sometimes, especially with like feet and meters and centimeters and it's inches. It gets pretty confusing. But I mean, for sure, the metric system makes a lot more sense. I mean, like 168, I don't know, 180 centimeters versus like 5'11. Like, what is that even supposed to mean? 5'11,
It means you're
It's
5 foot and 11 inches. I'm like, doesn't matter. Okay, we gotten pretty far off on a tangent.
We
Comparing
would have to
cultural.
rename our entire hamburger measuring system. And I don't know if we can handle that.
Oh wait, no. The side note. Did you ever hear about that story about when like the quarter pounder
Oh
was
yeah.
out? And I think it was
An,
Wendy's or Burger King that tried to come out with like a third pound.
1/3 pound.
Yeah, and people like it failed because people didn't realize they thought the third pound burger was smaller than the quarter pounder.
Because 3 is smaller than 4. Yeah. No,
uh,
that's a real life thing that did happen. We don't talk about it, but it did happen. But yeah, I mean, it's so much more satisfying to be like, yeah, I'm getting a quarter pound hamburger than a 8-gram hamburger or whatever. I don't actually know what a quarter pound is in metric,
Well,
but
let's take a hard break. I know I had to bring that last little bit of the story in, but it just never will leave my mind. Back onto like the relevant stuff of what brings us here together, our joining of our families, the combining of our cultures, and the combining of our communities.
for the record,
Uh,
it's 0.13 kilograms, and that just doesn't roll off the tongue the same way, you know. Anyway, continue.
lost track of
yeah,
it.
definitely. I mean, your system definitely has a lot more marketing potential. I'm sorry, Reason. Go ahead.
Let's just debate the merits of
I
the metric
I could
system
talk
for an
about
hour.
this like for the entire time. I really could. I mean, this is like an area of interest for me personally. But yeah, let's move on. Sorry.
I've already got the converter up on my phone. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, y'all, it's way too early for me to try and be the one that wrangles the conversation. Anyway, Clayton, it's where we're going. You guys have
It
come
is.
to New York.
Oh, sorry. Was I supposed to say something? I completely missed your intro or your segue. I'm
John,
sorry.
I have admin privileges to this stream. I can make this harder for us.
Okay, I apologize. Okay, you have my full attention. So please, I'm sorry if you could redo your segue for me. That would be much appreciated, man. I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Clayton. We're going to Clayton. And this is gonna be our new home. And we're gonna be like, hi, John.
I think we
And
passed that part.
I mean,
This is me reforming the intro to it. Anyway, we're all very excited. We kind of wanted to get an idea of your guys' perspective behind the scenes. Clayton's new to a lot of our community. You know, it doesn't. When we were there, when we were in Singapore talking to people, the name Clayton was very familiar. Some of the people that were from United States or the West that we've met before, was something that we just had to explain to them, or was a newer name to them. Um, Obviously, we looked at quite a few different options, and I'm very glad to know that we ended up with y'all. Just kind of wanted to know from your side how that experience went, and from the start of talking to us till where we are now. And I'm sure Bolon can chirp in on kind of some of our decision making.
yeah,
We
for
can talk
sure.
about both sides.
Yeah, for sure. So the thing is, like, I don't want to like be repeating any kind of like talking points that David Shin may have already kind of like discussed with your community during his AMA. So just like brief intro, I guess. Brief background. So the Clean Mainnet was launched back in 2019, June 2019 to be more specific, and so there are a lot of differentiation points, I think, that makes Clayton stand out compared to other airlines. So first and foremost, I think the most obvious one is that we're backed by Cacao. And for people who aren't familiar with the Cacao Corporation, so it is probably the largest or the second largest tech company in Korea, if not Asia, by market capitalization. So Kakao's main product is the Cacao Messenger, which is basically the de facto messaging app in Korea and also in a lot of Southeast Asian countries as well. So in Korea, like for example, I think we have like a market share of 94%, which is pretty crazy. So the Cacao Messenger has evolved over the last couple of years into a super app. And I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of a super app. Is basically it's an all-encompassing mobile platform. So not only do you have your messenger application at its core, but you also have things like ride hailing, banking, payment, even shopping, like buying gifts for your friends and stuff like that, and all of that is really seamlessly integrated into the messenger platform. And so I guess there were initial discussions about like integrating Web3 and blockchain technologies into Cacao like way back in like 2017, and I think it only made sense for Cacao as a group, as a corporation, to explore blockchain technology, because I think there are two aspects to that. So first, since Cacao is such a large company and such a large corporation, there's somewhat a certain level of like saturation in terms of like market share. We've like we're at a position now where especially growth has slowed down because we're so big, and practically again like 94.5% of the population uses Cacao. So for a Cacao, it's really important to kind of like identify technologies that would kind of help it expand, especially globally. But for things like for a platform like like a messaging app, there are a lot of kind of like back end kind of infrastructural requirements that you would need to invest in order to expand overseas. KYC, servers and all that stuff. So blockchain was a way for Cacao as a company, as a service, to kind of like expand its reach globally to audiences and users outside of Korea and outside Southeast Asia in a more efficient and optimal way. So that was kind of like the birth of the KLAYTN blockchain. So from its inception, KLAYTN blockchain was designed to perform. So performance was one of like kind of like its key kind of like goals and objectives in terms of differentiation points, because we wanted. I mean, I do remember back then, like Cacao was exploring like existing blockchains like Ethereum, and there weren't many around back then with smart contract functionality. But the especially like latency, block times, it just wasn't there. So that's why it was really important to be able to kind of like build on a blockchain that gave that seamless mobile experience for end users. And that's why Cacao decided to create its own blockchain. Here we are today, and it just kind of like made sense, I think, for us to kind of like I guess invite you guys, quote unquote, invite you guys to work with you guys, to help you guys onboard onto KLAYTN, because KLAYTN as a blockchain from a DeFi Kingdoms perspective really, I think there's a lot of synergistic opportunities there.
Well,
Go ahead. Sorry.
Cut you off, John, but I don't want you to go too far where I lose track of my comment. But one of the first things that excited me when I first started learning about KLAYTN is something you brought up, and the market share and the buy-in that you have from your consumers, and that's just an impressive number regardless of whatever industry you're comparing it to. Like that's unheard of to have that much penetration into a market. So the idea that obviously all of the blockchain technology, Web3, gaming, all of this is trying to expand its user base. It's trying to increase the knowledge of the general public, get wider acceptance. To me, that was the thing that I realized when I was first reading about you guys, of like, oh my gosh, these guys have that down packed. They have built a relationship with their users that anything associated with their brand is met with a certain level of quality, to where people are more likely to try a new product if it's backed by that company or associated with that company in some way. And I think especially with the loosening restrictions in Southeast Asia on crypto and gaming, Web3, I think that that's really going to be key as far as the moving forward and really getting huge growth, is that focus rather than on all the flash and who can I get as a celebrity to buy my NFT or things like that. Like showing real world usefulness and tying that into everything. And that's kind of perfect for us and our thought process since starting the game.
I mean, definitely couldn't agree with you more. I think one of the biggest reasons, like, to your point, consumers, really like, organically and very aggressively, do buy into a lot of like, products and services that are released by Cacao. And the big reason I think for that is, Cacao's experience in just like, user experiences. It's again, like all of their, I guess additional services like ride hailing and e-commerce and all that stuff is really seamlessly built into the Messenger application. So for us, one of our kind of like end goals is like to have our services on KLAYTN, to have all our protocols, all our projects be seamlessly integrated into the Cacao ecosystem eventually. I mean, it's going to be a long while before that actually comes to fruition because, obviously there are regulatory kind of like limitations, lack of like, clarity around like what we can do. But I think definitely in terms of like, ability, resources, we're ready to kind of pursue that. But again, it'll be a long game because we still have some work to do internally from like a stakeholder perspective. People who make decisions top up, they're still kind of like unsure about certain aspects of Web3. But again, that said, ultimately, I would love to see like a service like DeFi Kingdoms really like seamlessly integrated into like the Cacao ecosystem, where you use your messenger app to kind of like send hero NFTs between friends. Your Cacao Bank account is connected directly to the DeFi DEX, where you can like purchase jewels directly you from your bank account and stuff like that.
That's ultimately what people want. And the same way that you guys are working on it from that perspective, from that side of it, is the same way we're kind of going at the game design. There's a lot of problems that we're solving for that seem small on our user base, but realistically are going to be the decisions that people look to when they're designing games in the future on the blockchain. Some of the amazing programming that I could not even pretend to comprehend, but I've heard from enough people that have spoken to me till my eyes glazed over and lack of understanding, to know just how talented the people that we have are. And those are the kind of things where we are preparing, growing our game to be enjoyable and fulfilling and worthwhile and fun and entertaining, while also solving all these really crunchy problems in the background, which is similar to kind of what you guys are doing, so that when those two streams meet at the right time, at the right place, when the market calls for it, I think that we're going to be the most well prepared for that mass adoption.
Ease
I
of adoption
completely
is always important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I couldn't have put it better myself. It's almost like as if that was like a pre-written speech. But yeah, I mean, for sure. Like again, at the end of the day, like the key kind of like I guess the key features and functionality that end users look for, I think the user experience, especially where these days, since you have so many options, um, and so that user experience again is is the core of what we I think try to do at KLAYTN Cacao, and so that's also part of the reason why I was so attracted and to DeFi Kingdoms when I first started like interfacing with you guys. The gamification aspect that you bring to DeFi, I think, is something that we'll see a lot more of. I mean, because gamification is like everywhere these days. And I think gamification is also just another evolution of that user experience and user interface. And so that kind of like, the seamless like, integration of like, gaming aspects, like, you guys even have like PvP and stuff like that, just with like, as of the functionality of like dexes and stuff like that. I think again, and combine that with like staking and like NFT trading, and also combining NFTs and for stats and stuff like that. And yeah, I think those kind of like gamification experiences will definitely spread to other sectors in Web3 and also Web2 as well.
There's
I'm
definitely
curious. Oh, go ahead.
sorry. I was just
No,
gonna
no, go.
make a comment of, I was thinking about just to show maybe me and Bolon's age a little bit, but like having to do the back connector into the TV that had the switch on it to switch over to the game station, and then plug in your your game station, and then make sure that everything was wired up properly. And you had to like you couldn't just turn it on. It
And
was
then
a
8 years
process.
later, you had to tell your parents to get off the phone so you could play online.
And you know what? As crazy as it is, as much as like, you know, we have these amazing computers and like we're definitely gamers like in our own time. When I really think about it, it's like, what do I actually play the most? And it's going to be the things that are super convenient, that are entertaining, that I can pick up and put down. And that's where you see like this crazy expansion to the hyper casual gaming, which is pretty much just a fancy way of saying games on your phone. But it's I just imagine that taking some of the gamification and covering some of the crunchier bits of like logging in, the wallets, like those are going to be the things that kind of bridge that gap to make it as simple as this stupid game that I'm playing on my phone right now, which benefits me not at all, but I probably spent 2 hours staring at it last night, not sleeping.
So there's a question in the chat, and it kind of has to do with adoption. I'm curious of John's opinion on it. So I'm going to put John on the spot with it. But in your opinion, will DFK need to change at all to be broadly accepted into the Korean market?
I would say no, because again, consumers are always like, you know, looking for new experiences, I think. And especially like, you know, my experiences living in Korea, you know, and also being a, you know, a Korean consumer myself, I found that, you know, people adapt really quickly to new things here. You know, be it like new social media platforms, like because I remember like Instagram wasn't even a thing here, like back in say like you know the early 2010s, but it just kind of just like blew up. So the level of like you know interest in new technologies, new services, is just kind of like you know off the charts here in Korea. So I would say I don't think there would be any need for adjustment or any changes to what DeFi Kingdoms is now in order for Korean, you know, gamers or you know, degens to kind of like you know engage with. But that said, because it is something new, especially from like a claims ecosystem perspective, I think there is going to be a you know like a level of education that will be required for people to kind of really understand what DeFi Kingdoms is. Because at a face value, kind of like you know quick glance kind of thing. If you look at DeFi Kingdoms, you know a lot of people assume it's just like a retro kind of like RPG kind of game where that is not the case at all, right? So definitely I think there will be a level education required, but I think people will kind of like enjoy that process as well because it is something so new. And just kind of like maybe going off on a little tangent, but also related at the same time. So, I mean, we were talking about this just like, you know, while we were, you know, waiting for the podcast to go live, but like 70%, 80% of the smart contract interactions right now on Clean are with DeFi protocols. And I think a lot of that is to do with current market conditions. So, I'm seeing a lot of like you know EOAs. EOA means externally owned addresses. So EOAs, you know, interacting with like staking protocols, you know, farming for liquidity and stuff like that. And the fact that you can kind of like you know achieve those things through like a gaming experience, I think is very appealing, very appealing. And so once as we approach launch, I think you know myself as you know someone who's responsible for you know growth and marketing here at Clean is that those are the kind of aspects I think we're going to be like highlighting for our existing community. And yeah, again, I'm just repeating myself right now, but it definitely Korean gamers, especially, I think, are always out for new experiences for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, we appreciate it. And that's one thing too, while we're speaking about Korean gamers, that we were talking about in the lead up to the podcast, but we'll repeat it on here because I think it's an interesting fact. So there's an article put out by Bloomberg that that was talking about how a large portion of gamers have rejected the NFT movement, and it wasn't as much directed towards like Web3 gaming and actual gamification. It was a lot talking about, you know, a lot of games are moving into NFTs and they tie the NFTs back into the games. And sometimes it makes sense and sometimes it doesn't. But a lot of gamers have been pretty resistant to it. But there's another article put out that John was talking about that said that Korean gamers are kind of the exception to that, that they are more interested in the NFT side of the gaming or of gaming. So I think that's really interesting as well, and we gain a lot of exposure to that audience, which, you know, Worlds was League of Legends Worlds was going on, or still is. I don't know. I've lost track of what day it even is, but I know last week I was watching someone, and I mean it's just a running joke that North America shows up and just gets absolutely obliterated and then goes home. Like it doesn't matter. You know, the teams win in A and then go out without a single win in Worlds and just go home. Like it's just over. You know, gaming in Asia is just such a different level of skill and interest and really like acceptance. And you know, that's one thing I think we've seen a lot like in the US is, you know, this younger generation. And wow, now I sound really old. But anyway, you know, gaming is more like accepted. There's more, you know, gaming, there's more streaming of games, there's more esports.
My
It's
nephew
not
got
as like
a scholarship, a college scholarship. He's going to a 4-year university.
university.
Half of it's paid for him to be on their esports team.
Yeah.
I lost my mind when
Yeah.
I heard.
What
I
school is
can't.
this?
I don't pay attention that closely. He's just my nephew.
All right.
But yeah, like
It's
it's
somewhere
becoming a
in
thing
North
again.
Carolina.
And
Okay.
it just, or it's becoming a thing really in the US, whereas it just hasn't been. You know, I think like when Raisin and I were growing up, you know, we played video games and, you know, nerds played video games, so to speak. And now it's just so much more accepted. And I feel like that's kind of where the other side of the world has been with video games for a lot longer. They were
Which
just much more mainstream.
something like League is a perfect example of the adoption and the fervor of their communities in the Southeast Asian communities in those games have kept a lot of those games relevant and popular and able to keep putting out new product and new releases. So I'm perfectly fine losing to them every single year. Like, there's no national pride when it comes to esports. I'm perfectly fine. We can be terrible at it. We'll just put that on the list with soccer and move on. Because I'm just glad that somebody is keeping it alive for all the people over here that just like to casually play things and not be very good at them, but still do them anyway.
I mean, so like I may be dating myself as well, but I mean, I'm one of those people who used to like blow into cartridges to get them to work and stuff like that. I'm from that generation. So
Yep.
Gaming has been a part of my life for a very long time. And as a Korean gamer who grew up in Korea but has also lived overseas, I can definitely tell you gaming has been very different from a cultural perspective compared to like English speaking language countries, because in Korea gaming has been mainstream for a very long time. So um, it's a pastime. It's like, you know, like I mean, like I attended school in Australia. You know, when we were in high school, like, you know, we would play rugby, you know, rowing and stuff like that. But in Korea, it was an accepted pastime that, like, you know, after school, you play games with your friends. I mean, even now, like you have like men in their 30s and 40s, like, you know, going to like, you know, gaming cafes, like PC cafes after like a drink and play games, like, you know, before they go home and stuff like that. So I mean, that article that I was talking about like before, so it was an article interviewing Yatsu, who is the co-founder of Animonica Brands, like one of the kind of like, you know, biggest VCs in the space. and he was talking about how so not just Korean gamers, but Asian gamers in general are more accepting of NFTs and Web3 functionality in games. And by the way, this article was shared by someone in your community. So thank you to that gentleman. And I think the biggest reason for that is I mean, I would say a lot of Korean players, they tend to be more hardcore players. So it's more about like play to win rather than like say like play to earn or something like that. But that said, the paid, like buying skins, loot boxes and items have always been a part of Korean games. I would probably say, like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with like really old school Korean games like Lineage. Lineage was one of the very first like MMOs. I think it was like back in like the late 90s or something. But I mean, like Lineage had like loot boxes, and people, what they did was, because there was no marketplace back then, people would like sell like legendary items like OTC style by selling their entire like accounts, or like dropping items like in specific maps, and people would be just like waiting with like bags of cash and stuff. And I know a friend, which is, this is kind of like similar to your story, Kristen, but I know a friend who was actually able to pay for his entire 4 years of college by selling a legendary item from Lineage, and this was back in the late 90s. So
I never made that much money, but I did used to I used to level shadow level WoW vanilla accounts and sell them. It was a decent little time suck. But
yeah, I mean, yeah, people actually like made a lot of money like doing stuff like that. And this was like before like marketplaces and stuff like that, before NFTs and all that. So because that kind of like culture and those kind of aspects of gaming were so accepted early on, I think NFTs are just like a natural evolution for like gamers, especially like in Korea and Asia. And the fact that NFT based gaming items, I mean, the ownership is fully on the player, right? Like the player has full control and full ownership of that specific item, which I think is also appealing a lot more for players. Just before then, despite the fact that you would like find these items, you buy these loot boxes, ultimately all that data was still on the gaming server side, right? So natural evolution, I think, and I think that's why you're seeing a lot of AAA legacy gaming companies, like big gaming companies here in Korea, exploring Web3 technology, and not just like a cash grab integration. I mean, I do understand the backlash from like the hardcore kind of like console gamers, PC gamers in English speaking countries against NFTs, because a lot of the integrations, especially like I don't want to call anyone out, but like certain gaming publishers, a lot of the integrations were obvious cash grabs, really didn't do anything to add
surface level. Like
yeah.
there's no substance. It was just brand. And that's where like we've had plenty of people, offer or ask us about doing, even something as simple as like paid tweets or things like that, like all the way down to the base level. We've never done, because it just doesn't feel right. Like your product should have substance of its own. And thank God we have an absolutely amazing community that's pretty much done most of our work, because you gotta know, me and Bullon have no clue what we're doing when it comes to like marketing or but yeah, that's where it just didn't feel substantial. There was a ton of projects that I was following, really excited about, using IP from other games or anime or different shows, and they either never actually happened, or there's you know, any number of the different things that have happened in Web3, or they finally came out and it realized it's just like a reskin version of something that already exists. There's nothing new and exciting, and it doesn't even feel like the IP is integrated in a fulfilling way, which really just
Somebody
shows they didn't start from the bottom up.
somebody put a ranking of activities in our chat, and first was PC gaming, second was doing nothing, and third was console gaming, which I'm a little bit offended by because I used to be a pretty big console gamer.
No.
But
PC, the last
I
time I was
have
dedicated to
converted
a
to
console was
PC.
Super Nintendo.
You know, I kind of do take offense to that. I mean, I am a lifelong console gamer. Again, of course, I've had, you know, my fair share of like PC gaming experiences. But the thing is, like, you know, for me, just from a consumer standpoint, um, no need to like upgrade my video card like every 6 months, and like, you know, no
It's not a
fiddly.
need. It's you get to do those things. You
Oh,
get to short out your motherboard when you first are trying to do things because you don't understand static electricity and grounding yourself. It's the excitement. Everybody loves RBG colors. Like, and
my
Bolin,
bad.
you can't disagree with that. I know your case looks like a freaking rainbow threw up on itself.
That is not true. It is all purple and gray and blue, but there is a lot of it. But at the same time, like, first off, so consoles have always been cheaper than any kind of decent computer for the same amount of power. And second, I set up a console, I plug it in, and I get to play. I don't have to set up 18 different programs. I don't have to wait for Windows to update because everybody knows that's my favorite thing to do is sit there.
You just
Windows
have to
is
sign your
updating
life
3 hours
away
later.
to one company that limits their releases, makes you pay out of pocket huge amounts, makes you wait in
Oh,
line,
all of
and
that
then
happens on
doesn't
PC
back,
too.
you know, the games you paid for before on this new console you can't play anymore.
Most
Oh,
of
and
them
then
were always backwards compatible. You're so
That's
full of it.
that's part of the experience. Like, it's like how you have to fiddle with your motherboards and stuff. Like, it's all part of the experience. You know, I love it. I love it. Um, things like I remember. So I mean, there was a time where I was like PC only, and the big reason for that, and I'm really dating myself now, is I'm a huge adventure game fan. I'm more single player, story oriented gamer than like, you know, multiplayer and stuff like that. But like the old LucasArts games. I don't know if you. I don't know. I'm probably really dating myself, but like the old LucasArts games, like Monkey Island, Indiana Jones, Full Throttle, uh, Day of the Tentacle, stuff like that. You know, those adventure games were like my kind of like, you know, drug of choice, and the PC games back then had the best like single player experiences, like RPGs as well and adventure games. But then there came a point where we started getting like better like story oriented single player games on consoles, and I think that's when I kind of like switched my allegiances. Like, I mean, dude, you're not gonna get like a game like Last of Us on PC first, you know, kind of thing. I think best, the last best single player experience that was kind of like PC first was Half-Life 2, I would say.
I don't
And
know.
oh really?
I was in the camp of people that didn't ever have a problem or a single bug with Cyberpunk. So
Who?
Cyberpunk?
I can't say that. I
I
loved the
I,
game, but I had so many issues with it.
I had no issues whatsoever. I think Bolan was just trying to do some questionable stuff with his characters, and
Nope.
that's what it was.
Nope.
But
Just trying to pick up items that weren't able to be picked up sometimes.
at least, you know, regardless whether it's console or PC or mobile, at least we're not little kids playing on a Game Boy that doesn't have a backlit. So it's like you're on a car ride at night with your family,
Oh, I
yeah,
did
and you
that
had
too,
the
playing by
experience
the
of trying to
streetlights.
play with
Oh
the
yeah.
Oh,
street
dude,
lights.
We've all
Well,
done
then
that. We've
then
all
they came
done
out with the
that.
little light that plugged into the charging port, and it
Yeah,
had the little curly, and then you had the
yeah,
light over. Man,
yeah.
that was freaking high tech right there.
Because
That
then
was
you could
the
play under the
tech of the
covers
century.
in bed when you were asleep.
I
I
mean, you
liked it
guys.
better for the car rides personally because I just played over the covers when I was supposed to be asleep like a normal person. But
I mean, so like when I had my Game Boy, I remember, I might be mistaken, but didn't they
Just a
have this kind of
magnifying
like thing where you could kind of like place on top of your screen and it would light your screen for you, like the old Game Boy? Like it was like this like really cool kind of like like
Was it the magnifying glass? Because Crypto Meme
yeah,
mentioning
yeah,
that
yeah, 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 yeah.
the Game Boys used to end up turning into like Transformers because it had like the side control, had the top that like hinged over with a magnifying with backlights, and then did either of you ever have the Game Boy printer?
No, but
printer, no.
I know what you're talking about though. I know of it. Yeah.
You could take pictures and print the first selfies out, and they looked exactly like you would expect them to.
I mean the thing with like so the Game Boy I think was like the first real portable like gaming console. But the thing is like sure it was portable, but the thing is like anytime you wanted to like go outside with it, you would have like battery packs, cartridge packs. You'd literally have to take it out in like a suitcase, right?
Well,
Kind of like
that ultimately circles us back to why the the mobile is, as much as everybody wants to avoid it, I do want everything to be integrated. If you had told me 10 years ago that I would be doing as much as I'm doing now, that I don't own a checkbook, I pay all of my bills, I do all of my shopping, I am basically a shut-in besides leaving the house to go for dinner or to go play Magic with Bolon. Like, there's really not much reason for me to not integrate all the portions of my life besides, like, the corporate overlords that are watching us at all times. But, we don't, there's a small amount of my freedom I'm willing to give up for convenience. So,
so I mean, like, I know we're supposed to be talking about like, the migration to like clean stuff like that, but like this is such a like a subject that I'm like, I have so much interest in. But like, I had a really interesting conversation with a friend the other day, and we were talking about like how we envision the metaverse, right? And so my friend was talking about how it'll probably be like one of the big three like tech companies that releases like like a platform, like a service, and you'll log in, you'll have your virtual avatar and VR and all that stuff. And I was like, me personally, I was like, I don't see the metaverse like, I don't see people interfacing with the metaverse like that. Because what like, when you take a kind of step back and take a look at your life and how you live your life right now, we are technically, actually, I would say, in a metaverse right now. Because for me, the definition of a metaverse is basically like a virtual interface for all aspects of your life. So it could be like, like a virtual 3D space. It could be just like a web page. But for me, the definition of a metaverse is basically like a virtual interface that seamlessly integrates all aspects of your life. And for me, like my smartphone is my metaverse, right? My smartphone is basically that seamless kind of like interface for all aspects of my life. So ultimately, what I was telling my friend is, I think it will like. So a lot of people are looking at like software developers, like platforms, protocols to kind of like lead the way from the metaverse. But I think eventually it'll be like companies like Apple or like Google with Android, or like even hardware manufacturers that kind of lead the charge in terms of what the actual kind of like uh, end state will be for metaverse. So like ultimately, like it could be like the iOS. It could be at that iOS is like the end state kind of like for what we kind of like what eventually becomes the metaverse. So and again, like things like DeFi kingdoms, I think is like like an early kind of like like an example of that, because it combines a couple of aspects of my life that I use frequently in one package: gaming, DeFi, finance, um, social media, and that is integrated into like a very seamless user experience. So I think that is what kind of like the metaverse will be. Sorry to go off on
I
a tangent. Yeah.
No, you're right. Like I don't disagree with you. I would say there's two things that, based off of your example, if they solve for two things, which are really tied together, it's things that remove you from the experience. One is battery, that next level of battery integration off of lithium ion is going to be the thing that separates us from a 12-hour battery to 30-day battery. They have the technology, it's just a matter of making it cost effective, environmentally sustainable, to a degree, uh, enough to where like they have enough of the material to be able to continue manufacturing it and make money, of course. Hold on. And then, as simple as it is, it's removing some of the monotony of life that pulls me out of the experience. A couple of years ago, you had to have in the United States, you had to have a paper copy of your insurance card in your car. A lot of laws have changed to where now you can have a digital version of it on your phone, and that's accepted. We met with a ton of people while we were in Singapore, and the really boring stuff is the stuff that's really exciting. When they start talking about contracts and deeds and, getting rid of the idea of title companies. And uh, if I never have to go to a post office again in my life, that would be fantastic. That's to where I feel like there's no need for me to print something out and physically sign it. I should have there's enough technology out there for me to verify my identity to pretty much anybody in the world for any number of different reasons, and enough security for it. It's just the integration amongst all of those outdated or analog systems that we have a lot of the hardware that would already make it very seamless. It's just a matter of kind of getting over those hurdles. And that ties back to, what we're dealing with, the regulations in crypto and things like that. Like they're recognizing the fact that it's not going to go backwards. We're moving forwards. So now it's just a matter of, hey, let's try and think about this for a second before we open the floodgates to innovation completely. And I feel like we're right there. They're right about to open the door, and that's what I'm overall the most excited about, with tying it back to us being together. The idea why KLAYTN is because I think you share that vision with us, and I think we're going to prepare each other and our community and everybody else to be on the forefront, ready when those doors open, to be the most well-rounded, enjoyable, seamless experience entry into DeFi for mass adoption.
Um, I mean, yeah, I can tell that you've given all of this a lot of thought. I mean, especially with your like first point about like battery life. That's something that actually I've discussed with my friends as well. And again, in all seriousness, yeah, I mean, I guess like ultimately, like like my previous points that I was discussing earlier in our conversations, about DeFi, sorry, about DeFi kingdoms being like a, it's like it's gamifying. So I at a very kind of like face value, kind of like a simple kind of like perspective. It's just a gamification of DeFi, but long term at like a higher level, it basically describes what ultimately like what metaverse experiences will be, right? So I mean, right now, again, like I said, DeFi Kingdoms already has integrated really seamlessly like a lot of like things that I enjoy every day in my life. And I can definitely see you guys expanding that scope into other areas of Web3. And that I think creates a lot of like, again, opportunities for synergies because of our interest, and not just KLAYTN, but also, you know, Cacao, because we are, again, ultimately at the end of the day, Cacao, I think, will drive kind of like growth for KLAYTN eventually. So I think the end goals are very similar as well. Yeah. So definitely, yeah, agree with everything what you just said.
And that's one thing too that is super beneficial with KLAYTN is the ecosystem that already exists with other projects as well. Of you know our our idea of expansion isn't just us doing it; it's partnerships as well. And that doesn't mean that we won't do some stuff. We will, but it's also through partnerships. Of this is already built; it doesn't need to be built again. It just needs integrations. And so that's one thing that's really exciting as well is y'all have such a strong ecosystem with such a variety of projects who are all also very open to working with people and integrations and partnerships, that it really opens a lot of doors to doing that and to broadening that scope.
For sure. And I don't know if you guys are aware, like, I mean, I just kind of like mentioned it in passing, but so one of Cacao's subsidiaries is Cacao Bank, and Cacao Bank is one of the first online only digital, like, you know, financially like regulated banks in Korea. And just like, you know, just kind of like picturing like the future, but how amazing would it be to be able to kind of like withdraw or deposit money into my actual bank account via like DeFi kingdoms, because you know everything is digital, right? So just connect my Cacao Bank account to DeFi kingdoms. That would be like the ultimate kind of like an interface, right? So
Yeah, we just have to make a little NPC that we just call the tax man, and he just does all of that work for us. That'd be really great. It's going to be on the priority list for 2023.
Oh, dude. So I think right now, I forget the exact kind of like milestone in timing, but I think the government has announced that they'll start taxing um any kind of like crypto trades or profits from crypto beginning 2023 in Korea. So having that taxman functionality, oh dude, that's the game changer, I think, for sure.
Yeah, it
Oh
already
yeah,
is in the US.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Well, I think that we're going to look at wrapping it up. If you guys have anything else that you wanted to add or put your final
I was
thoughts.
gonna give John an opportunity since I think we've ended up just questioning him, uh, if he had any topic that we hadn't covered that he wanted to.
Well, I mean, again, this is something like, you know, I was discussing with you leading up to the live podcast, but just looking at, you know, a couple of like, you know, data points on Twitter, and I saw that right now. I mean, you guys are just killing it on Avalanche. I mean, so I'm a big fan of Avalanche and their community and the tech that they have. And I know there's been a lot of like misconceptions because of their subnet technology. So people tend to like, you know, whenever they access like Avalanche dashboards, it only a lot of the time it only captures like, you know, data from the core chain. But then a lot of the activities, you know, are actually and interactions that happen on the subnets, right? So I was looking at data on Avalanche and its subnets, and like gas usage has just gone like through the roof, like exponential, like over the last couple of months. And it turns out 90% of that is due to Crystal Veil. Like that, and so that kind of like blew my mind. Like literally 90% of all gas usage across Avalanche's core chain and its subnets is due to Crystal Veil. And I just wanted to congratulate you guys on that and the community as well. So that said, I think it's pretty good kind of like, you know, segue into like promoting our initiative, one of our initiatives, which is that we actually have a gas fee rebate program for my gaming partners. So built into our core tech, we have a functionality called fee delegation, which will allow service providers to actually cover the gas fees for its users. And to kind of like facilitate that, we have a gas fee rebate program right now where we cover 100% of all gas usage. So I think that's something definitely you guys should look into once you guys go live on KLAYTN.
Most definitely. And just for clarity, it is something that we are definitely going to be looking into. We do have to be live before we can even start the conversations, just for our community. So it will not be there at launch. At launch, it will be as normal, I guess, would be the short way of putting it. But yeah, that's definitely something that we're very, very interested in. And we have we've attempted to start the conversation and then been advised that we have to launch first, which is fair. But you know, we already have those conversations prepped and ready to go. But it is something that we're really excited about. I mean, it's just a genius initiative, though. Like, it's such a good way to say, you know, hey, you know, we have a fund just like every chain has a fund to do different kinds of incentives. We're going to incentivize usage. That seems logical. So
I'm just happy the
very
fact
much
that we
excited
don't
for
have to
that.
be vegans to enjoy the benefits of that.
I mean, just to provide some context for why we actually like, you know, initiated this program. So a lot of our gaming partners, again, come from like Web 2 legacy gaming like experiences, right? So a lot of these studios are like AAA publishers with like literally millions of users. And so their goal is to onboard their existing Web 2 gamers, you know, onto their Web 3 you know, games and services and whatnot. And those players don't really have never experienced gas fees. You know, they've never experienced the need to pay for like transactions or like, you know, interactions. So we figured, why not allow gaming developers to offer their users the same kind of experiences that they would have on Web 2, you know, games. You know? So that's why that was kind of like one of the thoughts that, you know, one of the catalysts on why we decided to launch this initiative. But yep, just letting your community know I am speaking with Bol and Reason every week. So we're definitely on this.
Yeah, it's a really good use of initiative funds, especially I'm not gonna take any pot shots because it would be way too easy to do these days, but not everybody handles initiative funds well. And it's nice to see when they are used well. We'll just leave it at that.
I already took my one
But
pot. I'm gonna leave it at that.
yeah, it's too easy for that one. So we'll leave it there. But it's good to see them put to use that benefits the ecosystem. You know, it encourages adoption, it encourages usage, and all of that just purely benefits the ecosystem. And that's, you know, really what those funds should be used for in some way or another. And there's tons of ways to do that. But this is just a really solid example of pure adoption benefit.
For actual usage and
Right.
to spur the in-game economy and help user integration, and it's almost like somebody put some good thought behind it.
And I guess so, just to kind of like put it out there before we wrap up, so one of the advantages of having like, you know, like a parent company like Cacao is it allows us the resources to kind of like really devote like, you know, any kind of like additional resources, I guess, if you will, that we have to, you know, facilitating growth and usage on KLAYTN. So we're not here to make money per se. No, actually, we're not here to make money. I'll correct that. We're not here to make money. We're here to grow the ecosystem. So I think that's one of the benefits of like, you know, having like, again, like, you know, a backer like Cacao. Is, you know, we have the resources and the flexibility to do that without having to worry about like runways or anything like that.
Yeah, that's definitely a major benefit.
Yeah.
But that is but it allows for y'all to do things that a lot of others can't because they do need a runway. And you know, that's not inherently bad in itself either. Like them needing a runway doesn't make them a villain. It just ties up some of their funding. Like it is what it is. We need a runway, as our community is well aware.
But
But
the less that we have to think about it, the more we get to think of technology and growing that. So
exactly. So yeah, we're really excited. I didn't have anything else in particular other than I did just want to reiterate a comment that you had made pre-stream, John, just because it really does speak to our shared values of the importance of a community in a down market. And yeah, that's all you have. Like in times like this, our community is what keeps us going, and that's one thing that we've said a lot is we're going to keep building as long as we have a community who wants us to. And that's really what it boils down to is, is the market bad? Okay. Do y'all still want this? Then we'll keep making it. Do you not want this? Then we'll stop because what are we making it for? But especially in a bad market, you really do see not just the value of a community, because hopefully, you see that all the time, but you really see like what kind of what kind of dedicated community you have. And that's not to say anything negative of people who've made exits or anything like that. Everybody has a personal situation that comes first, and everybody should do what is financially logical for them at any given time. But the fact that we've been in a bear market, I would say for probably about 6 months now. I guess, definitions of that could vary, but I would say probably about 6 months now. And, looking at our Discord as an easy example, we've only gone down 10%, 13, 12, somewhere around there, 10
yeah.
to 13%. That's incredible. And it just really, speaks to the strength of our community. And that is what keeps things moving during a bear market.
It's amazing that our community, even the people that have had to step away for, personal reasons or financial, whatever it is, a lot of them, like, I still chat with people that aren't in our Discord right now, who just want to kind of keep tabs on things, because the second that they have an opportunity to come back, they want to, that they're
Mhm.
that invested still, that they're no longer even financially invested, they're just emotionally invested, is absolutely mind-blowing. We just had somebody the other day that had to step away, and like actually melted my cold dead heart when they wrote like a little manifesto of like thanking all the people, and saying that this isn't goodbye forever, this is just temporary, and we appreciate everybody that has held on, and everybody that shows up and is still in Discord, helping new users, answering questions, keeping it fun. uh it definitely, there's been times for all of us to where we've had to step away or take a break or things like that. So friendly reminder for take care of your mental health and make sure that everything is good and that you eat and sleep and all those good things. Unless you're Beetle, then just keep coding and working and keep pushing things out for us. That'd be great.
Yeah, no sleep for Beetle.
Yeah.
I mean, so I know we're over time, but just to kind of like add to that, I mean, I speak to a lot of founders and I always let them know like the biggest asset that you have is your community. It really is. And I mean, I think that's why we're all here. I mean, that's why I got involved with crypto in the first place, to develop the community. Um, and and at times, especially times like these, as a community member, you may need, a certain level of resilience, patience, conviction. But I do believe all of that will pay off eventually. Um, there's, I'm of the belief that everything's cyclic. So we'll be back where we were when we began. But yeah, I let founders know like the biggest asset you have is your community, and make sure your community knows that as well. So could not agree with you guys anymore. Yeah, for sure.
And
Yeah.
the door's always open to anybody that cycles back. We're gonna welcome them back with a nice quick 5-minute timeout and in Discord, and lots of making fun of every single person and joking and things like that. And we're getting back to there, and very thankful to have you join us today, John. We've had the pleasure of talking to you a lot behind the scenes, and we're excited to have you on so that the community could meet with some of the one. Let's be honest, our favorite person so far from Clayton. Um, so I guess if nobody else has anything else to say, I thank you, and till next time, we out.
Yeah, guys, thank you for having me. Please have me back. Have me back. Okay, I'd love to be back.
Anytime.
I think the next time you should join is when we ultimately do an all-day live stream again for the Clayton launch, right, Bola?
Yes, yes, yeah. I will definitely be a part of that for sure.
We'll see if we can try and secure funding to make it happen in Korea.
Yes,
There we
yes.
go.
All right,
Oh
y'all.
man.
I'm gonna go
Thanks everybody.
sleep.
Thanks, guys.